The next thing we're going to look at is creative cropping. We've already discussed the rule of thirds, and now we're going to take a look at how you could do some creative cropping, especially when creating thumbnails. Alright, so we're going to go to File, Browse and Bridge, and we're going to open the blue bike image. Hit enter. And a lot of times when you are creating a thumbnail or trying to do a creative crop, you don't have to have the entire image. Sometimes it's okay to crop half of someone's face off, or to crop down over the top of their head to get the eyes right in the center of the image. Or to create a thumbnail that draws the visual interest of the viewer and makes them want to click on it and open that up and see exactly what is it they're looking at. That is what we're going to do here. So I am going to select my crop tool. Now the thumbnail we're going to create is actually going to be 160 pixels by 160 pixels. So I'm going to type in 160px and I'm going to type in 160px, 4 pixels. And you'll notice that the px disappears because it's not necessary here. But the 160 by 160 is actually a square, and so as I go down, remember we're doing creative cropping here. And usually what you do with creative cropping is you go in super close and abstract. And so for a creative crop of this image, I might just use that as my thumbnail. I'm going to Command Z to undo. Click. It's still set to 160 by 160. Maybe I don't want to crop anything to do with the bike at all. Maybe I am just going to focus here. And remember your rule of thirds as you're doing your cropping. And that's what we're talking about with a creative crop. Going in and just getting super abstract with your crops. What I would like for you to do is open up bluebike.jpg and set your cropping dimensions to 160 by 160. That's 160 pixels by 160 pixels. And do a creative crop utilizing the rule of thirds. Again, there are a lot of different things you can do. When you're through, you're going to Command Shift S or Control Shift S. Type in 6D, your last name, underscore blue bike. Make sure you're in your Chapter 6 folder and select Save. And the next thing we're going to do, and the last cropping thing we're going to do, is actually in Adobe Camera Raw. So go to Bridge and select Lady Liberty, right click or control click or command click on the image, select Open in Camera Raw, and the image comes up. Now, you can crop your image here in Adobe Camera Raw. Same shortcut is C for the crop tool. And when you click and hold it down, you can see the 1:1 ratio, 2:3, 3:4, etc., which is very similar to what we saw actually in Photoshop. But what we're going to do first is we're going to work on our perspective in this image. And you can do perspective a couple of different ways. You can straighten the image here using the straighten tool, same as what we saw in our crop tool. And so to use that straighten tool, again, all I have to do is click and draw. And you see that it applies my crop box around that area at the angle in which I drew my line. So if I go ahead and hit enter, you'll see that it crops the image there. Command Z to undo. Another way is to come over here in the raw panels and select lens corrections. And sometimes profile will come up, or color. You're wanting to select manual. Now, it's always a good idea to go ahead and enable lens profile corrections, and that will go in and take away some of the lens distortion. If it doesn't automatically find the lens that the image was shot with, you can go to the drop down box, select the maker of the lens and the manufacturer, and then it will usually find the lens for you. After that's done, if you'll go to manual, you'll see where you have sliders available. This is a nice easy way of adding a vignette around your image. Double click to get back to 0 on the slider. But then across the top here under the upright is the area we're going to look at. And so this first button is disabled. No changes are being made to the image. The second option is auto apply, and it's going to go in and make perspective corrections. And you'll see it straightened our image a little bit there. Next to that is level. It's going to only level out the image. To that is vertical, and it's applying leveling and vertical perspective corrections. And you'll see your image may start looking somewhat distorted. And then full applies level, horizontal, and vertical perspective changes to the image. And that's really distorting our image. But we can see that the building here, the stand, is actually more level and upright. And what you'll want to do is go through the different options, select the one that looks best. For this image, it is actually auto. So select auto, and then you're going to go to crop. And under crop, you're going to select 9:16, and you're going to click and drag and crop the image. Once you've cropped out most of the sky, and again, we used 9:16, make sure constrain to image. You can check show overlay, and you'll see that my overlay is now placed, and she is directly down the center. So you'll want to center Lady Liberty before you do your crop. Once you've cropped, you're going to go down to the lower left-hand corner, select Save Image. File extension is going to be .jpeg, and you're going to want to change that to .psd. We're going to change our color space of our image down to sRGB under color space. And we learned about why you would not want to use Adobe RGB last week when we watched the video. So under color space, select sRGB. Under file extension, select .psd. Under file naming, you're going to go with 6E and your last name, and then plus document name will come after. 6E, your last name, plus document name, and to get to that, you just click on the drop down arrow. Select preserve cropped pixels so they're accessible. And then up here at the top, you're going to select destination. And you're going to save that in your Chapter 6 folder. So you can select folder, find your Chapter 6 folder, click select. Once you've made all those changes, click save. And then you can click done in the lower right hand corner of Camera Raw. and you will see that image renamed as a PSD file and cropped is now located in your folder. Alright, so let's wrap up on cropping. Let's go to Bridge and open up the view. So you're going to open the view image, and I want to demonstrate for you a couple of different things. The first thing is going to be how to add canvas area to your crops. So let's say I want to crop this image to a 5x7. I'm going to select the crop tool and select 5x7, and you'll see I'm losing a little bit on each side. But let's say I want to place him directly down here. You'll see that I'm gaining area up here at the top. If I hit enter, then what I can go and do is I can select my clone tool, which you will learn about before long. I can add more sky in up here at the top. Or I could go in, and be careful when you clone, see this repeating, that's bad form. But I can add canvas area to my image to get the crop that I want, as long as I am adding to a part that's not too detailed. Sky, water, solid color background, grass, those types of things. Or I can create an area around the entire edge of my image. So I'm going to go back to where I opened my image in the history panel, and let's say I want to add a frame around the entire edge. I can do that just by pulling down and out, just like that. And now I've created almost a Polaroid type effect. Now I'm going to undo that, go back to open. You are going to use this image, the view, and complete the steps on page 244 through 246 on creating a Polaroid effect. When you are through with those steps, you are going to save that as 6E. So let's say I've got my Polaroid effect all completed. Then I'm going to go in here, Command Shift S, type in 6E, last name, underscore the view. Make sure it's a PSD because I've done the directions in the book. So I'm going to select Photoshop, make sure I'm in Chapter 6, and click Save and close. Again, you need to complete the steps on page 244 through 246 before doing that. So the next thing we're going to look at is the perspective crop tool. So under the crop tool, the next one down is perspective crop. We're going to open an image, go File, Browse in Bridge, and select Leaning. Let's say we wanted to straighten this image. We all know this is a Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's supposed to be crooked. But let's say we want to straighten an image up. We could use our perspective crop, and we can draw at our angles, make individual adjustments on each side as necessary. You can adjust in or out individually on the corners or on any of your handlebars in the middle. And then when you're through, you can hit enter, and it's straightened and the perspective is adjusted. And that can be really handy if you're taking pictures in a city looking up at skyscrapers or from a distance, or let's say you take a picture of a picture hanging on the wall. You want to straighten that up, such as what's demonstrated on the bottom of page 243. So that's a really handy tool as well. Be sure you're reading in the book. There's a lot of little things you can do with cropping. You can use the selection tool to crop. that just involves getting your rectangular marquee or elliptical marquee, drawing over, then going to select your crop tool. And your selection is now the bounding box for cropping, and you can hit enter and it will crop using that. So that's a really handy way of cropping as well. Command Z to undo, and I can go back up to open and we'll see my original image. You do not have to turn anything in on that. And next we'll be taking a look at resizing images.